So, yep. I think there was another question. Anybody over here? No? Oh, sir. Sorry, I'm kind of leaning this way, and I'm going to lean this way now.
Thank you for coming, Captain. My name is Bruce Satin.
Thank you, sir.
I grew up as an Army brat, and when I saw each branch of the service was very jealous of its own prerogatives, procedures. What was it like coordinating and integrating actually four if you include the Marines, four services into one operational command at the base?
Well, it's funny you said that. We certainly are not incorporated into one unified command. We still have our respective chains of command in the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, even the Coast Guard, and the Guardians, the new Guardians now. What we have sought to do to kind of bridge the gap so historically it's been stovepiped. It's been very stovepipe. The Army stays with the Army, they do Army stuff. You know, the Navy stays on the Lakehurst side and does Lakehurst stuff, Navy stuff, and all the way down the spectrum. What we've tried to do at the base in our tenure, so mine, Colonel Adams, and Colonel Brierton, and now Colonel Wisniewski for the ASA, we've tried to bridge the training opportunities. Again, I alluded to the Adventureland type of mentality that we've got on the joint base with the capability and the capacity to actually do a lot of joint training. So we have started up an operational sync meeting, which is nothing more than, if a unit comes and says they want to go fire mortars, but they need a forward air controller but don't have it, well, then the Marines could possibly do that. We've got airborne. So we've tried to bridge that gap. So as you may or may not know, everything we do is joint. So Iraq has been a joint venture the entire time. With Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, even Coast Guard. Afghanistan, same thing. You've got I-4, even with NATO. You want to make sure that when you get in country to do a mission, whatever that mission might be, you're not there learning it for the first time. That's what we've tried to do. We've tried to break the stovepipes, at least in training, not in the chain of command, but at least in the training so that they bridge over. And it's working very well. It's a little bit slow because people love their stovepipes, but they're starting to step out of it. So we've got Army medics teaching Air Force, not corpsmen, but Air Force medics to do Army stuff. They do. But yeah, corpsmen in the Navy, so that's why I was going to go to corpsmen. But we've got things like that are happening every day on the base, and it's absolutely fantastic to see that we can do that level of cross training here. But I think the chains of command, they like their little stovepipes. But we work well together. But I will tell you, it is relationship based. It only takes one to ruin it. Right now, we're good. We're really good. Ma'am.
Just a quick question for those. My daughter's going to be second summer of OCS down in Quantico.
Hey, all right.
And my brother was an F-18 pilot. And my question to you is, with the Marines and being always a line officer, can you talk a little bit about that?
A line officer. So basically, you can command any element in the Marine Corps. So you can command an infantry battalion if you're a pilot. You said your son was a F-18 pilot?
My brother.
Oh, your brother. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so line alludes to the fact that you can command anything. You have the capability and you were trained to be able to lead any command in the Navy. Now there are what are called restricted line officers. Those would be like doctors. Yes, ma'am. Did that answer your question or was that?
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
okay.
Because I do know some of the military.
Yep.
But Marines are a bit foreign to me. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Marines are fond of me too. I mean, I was there for 8 years. It was great. So, matter of fact, I'm trying to get the band for my change of command, the Marine Corps band. So I don't know. Hopefully, ma'am. No, oops, sorry.
For me?
Yes.
So I am a veteran from the Vietnam era U.S. Air Force.
Thank you.
The question I have, and I don't know if you can, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about, given everything that's going on in the world and the tensions geopolitically and otherwise, what level of security does a joint base like yours have to maintain, and how does that maybe impact the community around the facility?
Yeah, I can't answer that specifically, but I will tell you a lot. And what I will also tell you is, again, the community outpouring is not just to help out the local folks. we do have bridges between the local and municipal agencies around. So we are all tied in. As a matter of fact, I can talk about the OAR. The first people on board before we got the Afghan refugees was the New Jersey State Police. And I've forged so many close bonds with a lot of their police officers that still exist today. Yeah, we take security seriously. So, but.
First, Rebecca Kelly with Capital Health. Thank you, Captain,
Thank you,
for your
Rebecca.
service, of course. And I want to talk to you about, I had the honor of being inducted as an honorary commander in March, and I was so amazed with the outpouring of warmth and welcoming that you get when you meet everyone from the base. Can you talk a little bit about what you do to help keep morale up and mental health, because that's such a huge platform, especially since COVID, for hospitals and everyone else that's in the healthcare industry. But can you describe a little bit about what the morale is like, and what are some of the programs that they do to help keep that morale high?
Okay. That is a loaded question. But thank you, Ms. Rebecca. Yes, absolutely. I kind of spoke a little bit about resiliency and grit. I would love to stray away from the term resiliency and go more towards grit. And I think you can probably hear from some of the things in my speech that that's where I go. I'm a proponent of, if somebody comes in the military, I want them to be able to do what I said, that they need to be at a moment's notice, no matter what their rate is, to go and do what we could be called upon. And it doesn't matter what you do. By training them to do the military stuff, shoot guns, do land navigation, to do, to stay out in austere environments with bad weather, it might seem like it's, it's inhumane, but it builds that resiliency. Actually, it builds that grit. That is what we're trying. That's what we're doing on the Joint Base again with that OpSync. We're trying to get this grit going, because I think if you realistically train these young folks, they love that structure. I think that's one of the biggest, or at least the foundational aspects of what we're trying to get out of the Joint Base. Now, more notably, I think what we've seen a drop in resiliency. We've seen some increase in self-harm and things like that. And of course, those are very, very big topics. And we've got a lot of different venues to address those. But I would say that if we continue to base, to develop that grit through foundational training, it works. I have, over the last few years, so I was on board the USS Kearsarge in 2018 and 2019. And I had 255 sailors under me, all of which worked on the flight deck of an amphib, a large deck amphib. We had approximately 42 helicopters and 6 Harrier jump jets. And chaotic, to say the least, of that flight deck on any one given day. And we were sending folks into Afghanistan at the time, so we had people loading weapons on there. We had people in pump rooms. Jobs that are not the sexiest. They're not the ones pulling the trigger. They're not the ones doing what you see in the videos for recruiting and stuff like that. We built them up by saying, hey, listen, you're important to that, because that missile that came off and did that to the improvised explosive device making factory that they took out with the bomb. You in the pump room 6 decks below, sweating for 16 hours, put the pump on so that the gas can get pumped up to the flight deck, so that one of the other fuelies can go put it in the Harrier, and then the ABHs were launching them and recovering them. The AOs were loading the bombs and the missiles on there. It's a team. You have to make them feel part of a team, and I think that's the most important thing. That's the way we get to grit. That's the way we get kids off their cell phones, get kids off of video games, get kids stop cyberbullying and all that stuff. I think we give them purpose, no matter what that purpose is, and we show them how important it is. And that's something that is very, very near and dear to all of our hearts. In regards to morale, I've had to build those guys up. I had the worst department on the ship. I had the biggest department. By the end, I had more sailors stay in. I had more sailors that, not to pat myself on the back, but my picture still is on for the air boss position on the Kearsarge, and that was in 2019. So my kids were awesome, and I loved every one of them, and that's the way we have to treat them, and they were great. But I don't baby them. I make them do their job and do it well, and we train them to do it. I think that's how we get after that grit. I hope that answered your question, too. Thanks, Rebecca. Had a few more, too. Am I over time? Am I, I don't know, no, I've got time. I've got time. All right, good. Chris, am I good?
Second largest employer. What's the number?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You mentioned the second largest employer in New Jersey. What's the number?
Oh my gosh. Let's see. There are how many billions of dollars? I would have to get back to you. It's $7 billion in revenue. There you go. Thanks, Christine. I appreciate it. Yep. $7 billion. We've got, like I said, it's 44,000 acres of property that encompasses the Joint Base. So it's big, and then I think there's 44,000 buildings. So I heard PSC&G was here, right? I think they're good to go. So yeah, 7 billion, only to the state of New Jersey. So impressive, very impressive. Good save on the BRAC, right? Oh, Ms. Christine.
It's not a question, it's more of a comment and an observation. So the joint base coming together in 2009 was critical to New Jersey. We felt it when Fort Monmouth closed as a state economically and for lots of other reasons. So, what happened in 2009 was phenomenal. But nobody knew what to do, right? It's a roadmap. And while there are 12 joint bases, there's only one tri-service base.
Correct.
And that's JVMDL. And so all of the leaders that came before were trying to figure this out and put it together. And I wanted to compliment you, Colonel Adams, Colonel Bragton, Colonel Wisniewski, for really getting us to that tipping point and running with it. Because
Thank you.
it really feels joint in a way that's so solid and so palpable. And you and the other leadership really deserve credit for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Really. Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. That means a lot because, yeah, like I used the Frankenstein term before. It doesn't feel like it's Frankenstein as much now anymore. So it's definitely gotten better. So thank you. Please, sir.
So I know we've talked about transitioning out of military service, but I also know that there's been, and I spoke with Chris briefly about it, shortfalls on recruiting. And, part of the YMCA, part of the YMCA Alliance, global organization, obviously, but huge presence here in the United States. And we work, obviously, with children a lot. And how can we essentially team up to help with those shortfalls? And how can we construct something that is appropriate for the different ages on the introduction of what military service is, and then up to the 15, 16, 17-year-olds, getting them to, what's appropriate for them. And how can we help with the assistance on those shortfalls?
Well, I think the first thing we can start out with is stop saying that America is so bad. I think that's the first thing. The second thing, we said the Pledge of Allegiance here, and I know a lot of times we have taken that out of our schools. And that's a good thing. Again, it goes back to the first thing I said, which is stop thinking that America is so bad. Okay, we're not perfect, but you know what? I think we learn from our mistakes, and we've gotten better through the years. So I think that's a starting point. The other thing too is to manage expectations. Obviously you're going to be age-specific manage expectations, but again, I'll refer back to what my key point for the military aspect in the speech was, is that at the end of the day, the oath is there so that we do bad stuff. But it's cool stuff too. I'll refrain from examples if we could, but there's some good stuff too. Service is always good. I mean, again, we talked about service that the community gives to the military. I mean, we pay that back. It's back and forth. Service is not a bad thing. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of me's. We don't have a lot of teams. And if there's anything we can do, we can teach the young kids that America's not that bad. There's still opportunity. Pledge of Allegiance is not that bad, and it's good to belong to something, and that the military, for right or wrong, you know, we are here to serve our nation. We're here to serve the people, to make sure that we stay a nation of laws, because it won't be around for very much longer if we don't preserve that. So, all right, Hal. That's the hook.
Captain, I'm not sure that Wes Adams got a standing ovation, so you could take that back to the base.
Your Town Tube is today's #1 all-local promotion, social media and networking in the Princeton-Mercer region. The most effective, attractive, quickest, and affordable ways to reach a huge local audience.